Greetings and welcome to the channel. So in today's video, I want to focus mostly on Microsoft because there's been a lot of news surrounding Microsoft, specifically the Xbox brand, that, I want to kind of create a video and just share my perspectives on this. So to be more specific, it relates to their current pricing strategies, as well as my thoughts on Game Pass in general, as well as my thoughts on Microsoft putting a lot of the exclusives on other platforms. So if this is your first time here, consider subscribing. There will be chapters in this video for you to skip around to the part that makes sense to you. I do feel like each of these parts could be a video onto themselves, but I kind of wanted to just kind of compartmentalize everything into this one video as best as I can. I probably will touch on these individual topics in greater detail, but for now, I want to just give my initial reactions to each of these topics. So hopefully if that relates to you, like I said, consider subscribing, share your thoughts, and let's get started. So the first article here is by Forbes. And as you can see here, Microsoft hikes Xbox prices, games hit $80, and console prices jump more than 20%. Let's see, Microsoft announced price hikes to its Xbox consoles and games on Thursday, citing market conditions and rising costs of production, marking another major price hike to video games following President Donald Trump's tariffs after Nintendo announced it would increase prices for its newly launched Switch 2 console. So here are the key facts that are on screen right now. You can see that Microsoft's recommended retail pricing for its Xbox consoles will jump at least 20% for each version, according to a company announcement on Thursday. So basically, the cheapest Xbox console is going to go from $300 to about $380. There's a lot of frustration, a lot of anger regarding this. Even when I go on over to my X platform here, there are people that really, don't like it. Some people don't understand it. This guy, $80 games are now officially a reality for Xbox. Nintendo's completely at fault. I agree. PlayStation is obviously next with its price hike, and $80 is about to be the new standard. Depressing to see how much of a luxury gaming is becoming with the constant price hikes. And this is from Synth Potato. And, it's a couple of different articles, people reacting to different things. So to go back to the article, just kind of scroll on down here. So $729.99. That's the new recommended retail price for the most expensive Xbox model, the Xbox Series X 2TB Galaxy Special Edition. I will say that directly blame for me, and it might be a hot take, and it might be offensive to some people that are Nintendo fanboys and fangirls, and that is Nintendo. There is absolutely nothing about the Nintendo Switch 2 and its games that shows me that it is worth the price that they're asking for. There's nothing. So I made a video regarding that very early in the coverage of the Switch 2, expressing my thoughts on their pricing strategy and how at that time when I said if Grand Theft Auto 6 was contemplating making their game $100, Nintendo all but gave them the green light. And I did say in that video that this is going to have widespread ramifications throughout the gaming industry. And now we are seeing that with this situation here. What I want people to understand is this. Microsoft is a very successful company. They are a $1 trillion company. They're not hurting from money. They're not hurting from money. But at the end of the day, it is a business. I do feel that this is a possible strategy to make Game Pass even more attractive. So you have to understand, this is the mandate of Phil Spencer was and is the cloud technology and Game Pass when it comes to Microsoft. That is the main priority. The console aspect is not so much as important as it used to be. It's not a focal point the way Nintendo and Sony operates their business. Microsoft is, as I said, they're focusing mostly on the cloud and mostly on Game Pass. Now, people will say, well, Microsoft went third party. I don't really agree with that because you have to understand the differences. When Sega essentially went out of business, Sega did not have the capital to maintain their first party presence. That's largely the main reason why Sega went the direction they went, and they 100% went third party. Microsoft is in a very unique position. Microsoft has more money than Nintendo and Sony combined. I can actually go on to say that if it wasn't for the Federal Trade Commission and the fear of the gaming industry collapsing, Microsoft could just outright buy Sony and Nintendo. Now, you may actually disagree, and that's fine. We can talk about that in the comments section, but that's just how powerful Microsoft is as a company. You may not like Xbox as a brand, but you will be foolish to not believe and not accept the reality that Microsoft as a company dwarfs Nintendo and Sony. Like, this is just the reality. This is not my opinion. With that being said, Microsoft, or should I say Phil Spencer, when he took over from that idiot Don Matrick, the guy that was spearheading the Xbox One back in 2013, Phil had a very specific vision. To understand what is happening now with Game Pass, to understanding what's going on with the gaming prices, you have to understand what came before and the current mandate that Microsoft and Xbox has. Microsoft eventually realized that nothing they do was going to allow them to catch up to Sony. Nothing. Or Nintendo, or Nintendo in general, because the Asian markets, the Asian territories are forever loyal to Nintendo and Sony. So nothing Microsoft would do would even put a dent in that market. So even if Microsoft were to outsell Sony in America, the total amount of units sold in Japan and the other Asian territories would be a forever deficit that Microsoft would never overcome. So that's the reason why Microsoft decided to prioritize Game Pass. And now the decision to raise the prices, this is directly in line with Nintendo and Nintendo's decision to do this. So like any business, you're looking at what your competitors are doing in your same market. And I think we can all agree that there is nothing that Nintendo is offering that is worth $80. I'm sorry. You can curse me out. You can unsubscribe from the channel if you want. Let's call a spade a spade. There is nothing on that Switch 2. That Switch 2 is not worth $450. Those games, Mario Kart World, that is not worth $80. Let's put the nostalgia away because that's primarily how Nintendo reels in their fans. That's basically what they've been doing for years. They put out the bare minimum in terms of effort, and they reap maximum profit. So of course, Microsoft seeing this, they're like, look, if Nintendo is going to do this, and Microsoft, we're not going to admit this publicly, but we know that what Nintendo offers is not at that type of price point in terms of quality. We all know this. So if they're doing that, bet your ass we're going to do it too. But we're going to do it with a different plan, a different end game, if you will. So there are people out there that are saying, well, you know something? Why should I buy an Xbox at this point if, especially a console that's 4 or 5 years and it's more money now, than it should be. Why should I buy it when I can just get it on Game Pass? I can get it on a PlayStation, whatever game I'm looking to play. We've heard the argument. So Microsoft is utilizing this, in my opinion, to leverage more people to get more invested into Game Pass. Because from their standpoint, it's like this. We understand that our consoles and our hardware are increasing in price. So it may be difficult for you to buy in to our our ecosystem from the console side, but we do offer Game Pass, and you can play Game Pass games on various different platforms at the price of a general subscription. So this is Microsoft's way of making Game Pass even more attractive. Because I'm willing to wager that Microsoft is well aware of what is going on. They're well aware of the negative press surrounding the console and the hardware. They're well aware of this. They see this. They're not stupid. They know what they're doing. So it's pretty much like what they did with the strategy of the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X. And it was pretty much like, look, if you want a more affordable entry into next generational gaming, you can go with the S. If you want the premium version, you go with the X. So now they're kind of bringing this back in a different way by essentially saying, if you can't afford our consoles, you don't want to play, you don't want to go that route, you can still play our games or some of our games on PC utilizing a Game Pass subscription, and some of our games are also on our competitors' platforms. That's precisely why they're doing this. They're not raising the prices because they need the extra money. They got more money than Nintendo and Sony combined. So they're looking at this as a different yet unique strategy to potentially draw more people to Game Pass. That's what I think. Let me know what you think. I think I will speak to this a little bit more in detail, but I want to cover the next topic. So this next article is from comicbook.com. As you can see here, it says Xbox isn't trying to move everyone to their consoles anymore. Now, this is a bit of an older article. It's from February 16th, 2025. But I want to speak to this because, there's a lot of people that don't quite understand why Microsoft has decided to put their titles or some of their first party titles on PlayStation, on Nintendo. And I really wanted to speak to this back then, but I want to take this opportunity to do so now. This isn't a result of Microsoft dying or Microsoft giving up on Xbox. Like, this has nothing to do with that. A lot of people don't understand the bigger picture when it comes to these type of deals. This is nothing more than an old-fashioned licensing deal. Microsoft realizes, as I said in the prior segment, that nothing they do is going to allow them to gain more market share on the hardware side versus Sony PlayStation. Why? Not because the console is better. It's because the Asian markets, I'm just going to call it like it is, the Asian territories are fiercely loyal to Sony and Nintendo. So I've seen this going back during the Xbox 360 era, where I seen firsthand the amount of effort that Microsoft put forth into the Asian territories, both from the system design of the Xbox 360 and making it smaller, sleeker, able to turn vertical, which unfortunately all of the power they jam-packed within the Xbox 360 and the lack of ventilation and vents led to the whole red ring of death situation way back when. But it was an effort on Microsoft's part to try to appeal to the Asian territories. And then despite Microsoft's efforts, which were a lot, they still were selling laughable amount of sales in Japan and other Asian markets, so that when the Xbox One came out, they decided to have the Asian territories as a tier 2 territory. And they focused primarily on North America and Europe. So essentially, that console war ended as soon as the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 came out. Because the Xbox One was released in 13 territories, whereas the PlayStation 4 was released in 55. They maintained that mandate, that plan of action with the Xbox Series X, understanding that they would not be able to outsell the PlayStation 5 and any other Sony console, the only people that keep bringing this up are the so-called game journalists, which are basically largely PC enthusiasts and Sony fanboys themselves, and the other console warmongers on social media. Microsoft already accepted that this is just what it is. And that's why when you look at this article here, this is why it says Microsoft, they're not trying to move everyone to their consoles anymore. They understand it's pointless. There's a part here. See, it says here, this quote from Phil, he says, I'm not trying to move them all over to Xbox anymore. We're also invested in where our games are. Let's just allow more people to play, said Spencer. And yes, the 70% that we make on games on other platforms is helpful to us being able to build great portfolios like we showed at Developer Direct. And I hope this will continue to show through the rest of this year. So now the guy that created this article, he says the 70% figure Spencer is referring to is Microsoft's profit percentage after Sony takes 30% for the game being on PS5. Basically, Microsoft makes significantly less money when it sells a game on a competitive system than it would if that same game was sold on an Xbox One or a Series X. Now, I 100% disagree. Who the hell said this? This guy, Mark Deschamps, what a stupid last name. I 100% disagree with this guy. When you talk about significantly, look, if I'm having a deal where I'm getting 70% and I only have to give you 30, that is not a significant reduction for me. It really isn't. Now, if we're talking 50-50 or something like that, but I'm still making the lion's share of the sale. Now, we have to understand the facts. Sony PlayStation is dominant over Microsoft Xbox. We already know this. I know this as an Xbox guy. I understand this and accept it. Let's just do simple math. If there are 500 Xbox users and there's 1,000 PlayStation users, and I'm Microsoft, I put my game and 500 of my people are playing the game. And I also put my game on the 1,000 PlayStation owners, and I'm getting 70% of that revenue. I'm getting so much money on the back end, and I'm reinvesting that money into, like as Phil Spencer said, into the portfolio, that I'm making money hand over fist. I'm making money off of my Gamepass. I'm making money off of the games being bought digitally and physically. I'm making money off of the licensing deals that I have in place when my first party titles are being sold on the PlayStation side. So a lot of this, the average gamer that just likes to just pick up the controller and just mash buttons, they don't understand this. This is why when they go on X or they go on social media, they're saying, haha, yeah, that's why Forza is going to be on Sony. They don't understand that Microsoft is getting, every time you as a PlayStation owner are buying that Forza or any other Microsoft-centric game, we on the Microsoft side are getting 70% of that revenue. Thank you. And it's being reinvested back into the Xbox brand to help better our net codes, our Xbox Live, which completely shits on the PlayStation Network 1000%. It's reinvested back into Game Pass, which is basically the best value in gaming. And I'll get into Game Pass a little bit later. So there is a larger plan at work here that I don't think, actually, I know a lot of people are not getting. They don't quite grasp what's happening. I just wanted to come on here, share my perspective. Again, I don't know if you agree, if you disagree, let me know. We can talk about it in the comment section. From what I can see and my understanding of business, kind of like, why should I try to compete? It's a no-win situation for me. So I'm going to focus on my core audience, which is the Xbox audience, but I'm also going to put some of my games on the competitor side, and I'm going to work out a deal so that I'm getting 70% of that revenue back on my side. it's a win-win for me. This is not like, oh, Microsoft is losing. Microsoft is laughing to the bank. Have you looked at Microsoft's stock quote? Like, I think people really need to, and I don't mean to be facetious here, but I think people that have this opinion that Microsoft is dying, that Xbox brand is dying. Look, does Microsoft need the Xbox platform? I will say no. I think at this point, Microsoft does not need the Xbox brand. Well, I wouldn't say the brand, the hardware. As primarily a console guy, I would prefer Microsoft to keep making consoles, and I'm glad that they do have hardware coming in the future. I think 2027 or 2028. But I think the way Microsoft has positioned themselves, it is such a strong position because no matter what area Microsoft is going to, they're getting money. If you are making jokes and saying, well, I don't need an Xbox because I can just play their games on PC. Okay, then go and play their games on PC because Microsoft is still getting your money. Well, I don't need to buy an Xbox because I can just play their games on my PlayStation. Okay, you go and do that. You play Forza Horizon on your PlayStation and Microsoft will get 70% of your money. Either way, Microsoft is winning. Microsoft has positioned themselves in a very strong position from a business side. And unfortunately, the average gamer, not to be disrespectful, but the average gamer doesn't really understand business. They just understand how to mash buttons. It is what it is. So when you have an understanding of business and licensing and how that works, then you will really come to see that Microsoft is in a very strong position where not only do they have their hardware where, sure, is Microsoft hardware doing big numbers? No, but it is doing solid numbers. It's not doing anything record breaking. So you have the hardware money. Then you have the Xbox Game Pass money. Then you have the money coming from games that's on the Nintendo. Then you have money that's coming from Xbox games on the PlayStation. Then you have the games that's also on the PC. So all of this money, it's like you having different revenue streams. So anybody who can't see that and actually thinks that Microsoft is struggling, Microsoft is this, you guys don't get it. You guys don't see it. This also is the reasoning why very strong titles are being placed into Game Pass, because Microsoft has the capital, they have the money to give these developers and say, hey, we want your game to be on Game Pass. We're going to front you X amount of money so that we can have your game on our Game Pass service, so that it's going to attract more people to our service, our subscriber service. And also it takes a lot of the pressure off of you, the developer, because you're getting so much X amount of money up front. And you're also having your game being shown on Game Pass, which is a lot of people. And we've also expanded Game Pass to PC and so on and so forth. So it's a win-win. So people who may feel that the developers are not gaining money from, they don't know what they're talking about. Anyway, let's move on to the final segment of this video. I want to talk about this article that Phil is saying here. From April 16th. It's from purexbox.com, where he says Phil Spencer discusses why Xbox Game Pass isn't for everyone these days. And honestly, to me, this was a very simple take, but I think a lot of people still don't understand it. So I'm going to read it here. It says here, quote, "For me, I look at Game Pass as a healthy option for certain people. It's not for everybody. If you play 1 or 2 games a year, Game Pass isn't the right business model for you. You should just buy those 2 games, and that would make total sense. But I want you to have the choice. So we remain focused on everything that's on Game Pass is also available to buy. We're making those games available to buy in more places." Let me just conclude the video and say this. I live in New York, right? For instance. And in New York, I was about to call it Game Pass. We have a Metro card, right? I think they're going to be phasing out soon. So you can buy a Metro card for like the whole month, You get unlimited rides for the whole month for like, I don't know, I think it's like over $100. It's been a long time since I bought. But anyway, this relates. If I were to buy a Metro card for the whole month, but throughout a 7-day work week, I'm only using that Metro card maybe three days a week. 3 days a week. It does not make sense for me to buy a monthly Metro card if I'm not going to be utilizing it every single day to where it justifies its purchase. So that's what he's saying here. I look at Game Pass as a means to try out a bunch of different games that you may be on the fence on. So now this even ties in to my earlier point from the first segment where I said that Microsoft raising their console and hardware prices can actually benefit Game Pass. Because now, if you have a game that's $80, it's not so much that the game is too much for you. We can come up with $80. Some of us, it might be a struggle, but we may not be able to buy as many games, right? So what do? Now you're going to be very much conscious about which game you're going to invest in. What Game Pass allows you to do is, for what, $20? I think it's like 20 and change for the ultimate subscription. You can play a wide variety of many of these games that will cost $80, and you can kind of see, you know what, I like this game. It's pretty cool. You know what? I think I'm going to go and buy this game. And then what ends up happening is you cancel the Game Pass membership. You essentially had a whole month to try out that particular game. You decided on buying that $80 game, and now you're good to go. And also, Microsoft does a great job in letting you know, the people, what games are coming to Game Pass the next month and what games are leaving the service. So if you see a game that you want to try out, but you're not too sure if you want to spend that 80 or 60 or however much money the game is, you can just try it on Game Pass if it is available on Game Pass. And you have an entire month to try the game. And if you decide to want to buy it, you buy it and you can just cancel the subscription of Game Pass. However, somebody like me, you know, I'm playing Starfield. I'm playing this game, that game, this game. So having a Game Pass membership works for me. But if you're the type of person that only bought Game Pass to play Call of Duty, then you might as well just go and buy Call of Duty. That way, in the long run, it's cheaper for you as opposed to paying that $20 every single month. You understand what I'm saying? So that's pretty much how I look at Game Pass. It's kind of like, it's almost like having a demo of a variety of different games, but it's not really the demo, it's like the full game. But that's why I feel that Game Pass is the best value in gaming, because, and also that's why I love the Microsoft Xbox platform, because I love the choices that we are given. Do I like the price increases of the games? No, I do not, but I 100% blame Nintendo for that. And Nintendo started this, and it's just going to have wide range ramifications moving forward. But thankfully, a service like Game Pass exists. And, you know, if Game Pass didn't exist, I would probably be a little bit more upset over this. But because Game Pass is an option to everybody, even if you're on PC, I think that $80 aspect is not going to have that much of an impact, because if it really comes down to one game that you're playing, you can afford, if you're gainfully employed, you can afford one or so games. I'm just going to be very honest. Are you going to buy like 5 or 6 games? Maybe not. But again, you're going to be able to try a lot of these games in Game Pass. You're going to be able to see which ones you like. If you like one game, go and buy that game and just keep it moving. But anyway, that's the video. I said a lot here. Hopefully I earned your subscription. I think I can speak more about this in depth individually, but I just want to kind of cover these points just all in one shot, all in one video, just to kind of give my initial thoughts. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, on, are you a Game Pass subscriber? Are you on Microsoft? Are you playing Xbox games on PlayStation? In fact, I would like to know your thoughts on that. If you are a PlayStation owner and you are playing some of our Xbox games on PlayStation, what is the general feeling? What's the experience like? I would love to know. And I also love to have your subscription and all that good stuff. Anyway, take care. Peace. Thanks for listening. I'm out.